Thank you for having me again. I represent also women in business, and I appreciate for being here. Kenya Kwanza, actually I would say it's a good start. It's a good start to see something rolling. So I think with the right structure, something could be done. Yeah.
So you're optimistic?
Yes, I am.
It's a good start.
It's a good start.
All right. And I know you're a policy and youth advocate. Yes. But Mbuki, you have a day job.
Yes, I have a day job. I work with young people. I do a lot of youth programming. And for me, this Hustler Fund is, an area of particular interest because I have engaged with the other affirmative actions, Women Fund, Wezo Fund, Youth Fund, and of course NGAF, that is led by the women representative. And now seeing the Finance Inclusion Fund, popularly known as Hustler Fund, I think for me, it's they want to make, of course, fulfill their promises, but of course, them giving the regulations is for them to allow us to participate. But I would like to just, even as before we get to Hustler Fund, just reflecting on what other funds have been there, and looking at, for example, the Women Fund and Youth Fund. Youth Fund has been successful, at some point, but then of course it faced a lot of challenges as well, and of course, in 10 years of its implementation, it had given out 12.2 billion to 1.4 million Kenyans. And of course, Youth Fund was particularly for special interest groups. But what is different from that is with Hustler Fund, it's basically all the hustlers, depending whether you're a special interest or whatever, actions that you're looking at. But then also for me is to think about, during Huru's government, there was something that he tried to do, and that was to review the state corporations and why they were not performing, why there were a lot of mismanagement. And one of the proposals that the task force actually gave was actually to consolidate all these affirmative action funds because they were duplicating the functions, some of the functions. And you will find that, for example, Youth Fund has special interest group. You go to Women Fund, there is also a focus on women and a bit of youth as well. So there were a lot of duplication. But for me, when we are talking about Hustler Fund, what I was hoping that would happen is that as much as we are forming another fund, think about what that task force recommended. And they actually recommended the amalgamation of all the affirmative action fund. Although there was a challenge, I think the Kenya Law Reform Commission actually said that it might be hard to actually amalgamate. And I think it also went to Parliament. The Committee on Delegated Legislation also said that there might be a lot of work in terms of just aligning. But I think for me that would be great. Even as we are thinking about our fund, the Kenya Kwanza government should also refer to what the other government had tried to do to ensure that there is no duplication. Because if you look at, for example, Youth Fund, according to an engagement that we had in 2019, they had around 214 employees. This is Hustler Fund that is targeting so many people. There's a lot of administrative, engagement. That means you have more employees, a government that is trying to cut down on wage bills and all that. Then you have another replication of another institution. For me, that would be my challenge, because then we are trying to save on that. But really also to draw the lessons from all these other funds that have been struggling with repayment, for example. And I think Hustler Fund has also thought about it kidogo in a little bit, with engaging SACCOs. Because then SACCO, there's a way of managing, the repayment plans and all that. So I think they had thought about it. But even just looking at the previous funds, for example, Women Fund had an interest-free loans. Remember the commitment that Kenya Kwanza gave was actually, we will support you with capacity, and then you give us 8% per annum. What is the difference with that with the SACCOs? Because I'm a director of Kimisitu SACCO. Yes. And
that's the day job I was referring to. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Oh, well, that's it's oversight, basically. So it's not a day job. But so if you look at the Hustler Fund, 8% per annum is not a major interest, because the Hustler Fund intention, what I get and from the manifesto, was to really boost these struggling people in the economy. And you give them 8%, it's too high. If you look at Parliament, for example, Mheshimiwa can tell you they get mortgage on 3%. Yes. Judiciary. So why is it that this Hustler Fund is coming to help the community, it's coming to support small businesses, then you give them 8%. I think for me that was not a very good direction, but I think there's still room. We are still giving responses. I think there's still room to actually reduce that. So that even while you're going to engage SACCOs, for example, first of all, there's no big difference. Then secondly, there's also administrative cost for us to be able to disseminate that. So if they give us, for example, they say we are going to give Hustler Fund at 3%, then they give maybe the SACCOs at 1%, for example. Then there's a margin for us to say, okay, then we can actually support the government to actually implement the Hustler Fund. So I think there's a lot of lessons that we need to draw, and thinking about capitalizing the existing fund, maybe amalgamating and making Hustler Fund even bigger, and so that we can be able to have more impact to the citizens of this country.
All right.